The night before my wedding, everything looked perfect. The lights were up, the tables dressed in ivory silk, and the ocean beyond the glass windows shimmered with moonlight. Guests had flown in from 3 continents to witness the union everyone called a dream match. My fiancée, Claire, was everything I'd ever wanted: poised, ambitious, beautiful. We had built this future together, or at least that's what I believed. But when I woke up that morning, there was no message, no call, and no Claire. At first, I thought it was nerves, maybe she needed air. I dialed her number once, twice, voicemail. I texted her maid of honor, nothing. My chest tightened with every unanswered ring. I called the hotel front desk. She checked out at 5:23 a.m. with 1 suitcase and no forwarding address. No note, no goodbye, just silence. By the time the sun came up, whispers had already started. Cold feet, someone said. She ran off with someone, another murmured. My phone buzzed endlessly, friends, reporters, even my family lawyer, but the only message I wanted never came. Claire was gone, the ceremony was canceled, the guests dispersed. I sat alone in the empty banquet hall, watching staff strip away flowers that had cost more than my first apartment. I stared at the aisle we were supposed to walk down together and felt something inside me collapse quietly, like a bridge giving way without sound. That night I turned off my phone, locked the door, and stayed in bed until noon the next day. When I finally checked my messages, there was one new voicemail, from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, calm but deliberate. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "this is Thomas Keller. I represent Ms. Claire Dawson. There's a matter concerning your name on the property title for the Isla de Sol resort. I'd appreciate a call back." At first I thought it was some cruel mistake. Isla de Sol was an exclusive private island off the coast of Belize, a honeymoon destination for billionaires, not people like me. Claire's family, sure, they owned shares in resorts, vineyards, even a stake in a jet charter company. But me, I was just an architect trying to build a name in a city that devoured dreams. Still, curiosity got the better of heartbreak. I called back. "Mr. Keller," I said, "there must be some misunderstanding. I don't own property in Belize." He hesitated. "Actually, you do. You're listed as co-owner of the Isla de Sol resort, 50%, under joint private trust, Dawson Hayes Holdings." My breath caught. "That's impossible." "Perhaps, but it's in the documentation filed 3 months ago. Ms. Dawson transferred the title to your name as part of an undisclosed arrangement." I felt the air thin around me. 3 months ago, that was around the time she started spending more weekends visiting investors. I'd never questioned it. She was for money, I was. That imbalance had always hovered between us, invisible but heavy. "Where is she now?" I asked. "She's in Paris," Keller said, "but she'll be unreachable for the time being. She instructed me to ensure you're aware of your rights. If you wish to assume control, the island's management is awaiting your arrival." The call ended, leaving me staring at the phone screen as if it could explain any of this. I should have been furious, confused, betrayed, but mostly I felt numb. Claire had left me the night before our wedding, but somehow she made me co-owner of a multi-million-dollar resort. I booked a flight that same evening. 2 days later, I was stepping off a small seaplane onto the turquoise waters surrounding Isla de Sol. The air smelled of salt and lime. The resort loomed ahead, white villas, glass walls, palm trees swaying in perfect rhythm with the waves. Paradise sculpted to impress. A man in a cream linen suit approached me on the dock. "Mr. Hayes," he asked with a warm accent, "welcome. We've been expecting you." "I'm still figuring out why," I admitted. He smiled knowingly. "Ms. Dawson left instructions, said you'd come eventually." He led me through stone pathways lined with orchids to the main villa, a sprawling structure overlooking the infinity pool and the horizon beyond. The architecture was familiar, too familiar. I stopped mid-step, recognizing the curvature of the walls, the way the glass reflected the sea, the precise ratio of shadow to light. This was my design. Years ago, I'd sketched something almost identical in a forgotten notebook, a concept for a sanctuary by the sea. Claire had seen that sketch once. She'd laughed and said, "One day, we'll build it together." Inside, the villa was immaculate. Every detail screamed precision: marble floors, teak accents, open ceilings. On the main desk sat a single envelope sealed in red wax. My name was handwritten across it. I broke the seal. Inside was a short note written in her unmistakable script. "Jacob, if you're reading this, then I couldn't stay. Not because I didn't love you, but because I couldn't let them use you. The island is yours now, your work, your dream. My family will come for it, but don't let them take it. Everything you need to understand why is in the vault beneath Villa 3. See." I read it twice, then again, until her words blurred into the paper. My hands trembled. "Use you," the phrase echoed. Claire's family, her father, her uncles, they'd built their empire on manipulation and control, deals sealed with secrets. If she'd done this behind their backs, she was putting both of us in danger. The resort manager reappeared quietly. "Sir," he said, "there's also a package waiting for you in the vault she mentioned. She told us to give you unrestricted access." "Show me," I said. He nodded and led me through a back corridor to a staircase hidden behind a wine rack. The air grew colder as we descended. At the bottom was a steel door with a biometric lock. The manager placed his thumb on the scanner. The mechanism clicked open. Inside, the vault was dimly lit, filled with files, blueprints, and a single metallic briefcase resting on a pedestal. I approached slowly, every sound amplified in the silence. The briefcase had one word engraved across its surface: foundation. I unlatched it. Inside, instead of cash or jewels, there was a single hard drive, a folder of legal documents, and another note. "If you ever want to know what your father built and what mine destroyed, start here." The handwriting was Claire's this time. It was my father's. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. My father had died when I was 12, or so I'd been told. The man who raised me had never spoken of him, and my mother avoided the topic entirely. But now his handwriting, steady, familiar, was staring back at me from a page inside a locked vault on a private island owned by the woman who had just left me. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls too close. I looked at the drive again, at the faint reflection of my own face in the polished metal. The last line on the note seemed to hum in my mind, like a warning or a call. "Everything you've been told was part of their plan." The next morning, the island didn't feel like paradise anymore. It felt like a puzzle that someone had built just for me. Every view, every wall, every sound designed to whisper a secret I couldn't yet hear. The waves outside sounded louder, as if they were trying to tell me something too. I didn't sleep much. I couldn't. That note from my father kept replaying in my head like an echo I couldn't silence. Everything you've been told was part of their plan. I sat at the desk with the folder open in front of me. Inside were company records, blueprints, and letters signed by people whose names I only vaguely recognized from financial news. They all had one word in common: foundation. The folder was heavy with dust, like it had been waiting for someone to open it for years. There were letters between my father and a man named Robert Dawson, Claire's father. They were dated over 2 decades ago. My hands shook slightly as I unfolded the first one. "Ethan," the letter began, "the resort is a front. The foundation must stay buried until we can secure the patents. No one can know what we're building. If anything happens to me, protect Jacob." I stared at the page until the ink seemed to move. Protect Jacob, that was me. My father had written those words long before he was gone. My throat tightened. For years, I thought he'd been an ordinary engineer. The truth was, I didn't know him at all. The hard drive was encrypted, of course. It needed a password, but there was something else inside the briefcase, an old metal key small enough to fit on a chain. On the back was a number, 238B. I pocketed it and closed the case. When I stepped outside, the sunlight felt sharp, almost unreal. A group of staff members were trimming palm leaves nearby. They nodded politely but kept their eyes down, like they'd been told not to talk to me. A woman approached me from the far end of the path, a tall figure in a white resort uniform. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her accent soft, "my name is Rosa. Ms. Dawson asked me to look after you while you're here." I studied her expression, calm, unreadable. "You worked for Claire." "For both of you," she corrected gently, "since construction began." "What?" I decided to test her. "You must know about the vault then." Her eyes flickered just for a moment. "Only what she told me, sir, that it holds the truth." "The truth about what?" "About why this island exists." Rosa led me through the eastern villa, showing me where Claire had stayed during her last visit. Her room was untouched, everything neatly in place, not a trace of panic or farewell. But on her dresser, beneath a framed photo of us, I found a torn map folded into a small square. It showed the island, but marked in red ink was a small area inland, away from the resort structures, labeled Site B. I knew what I had to do. That evening, after the sun dipped below the horizon, I took a flashlight and followed the narrow trail leading toward the red-marked zone. The jungle was dense, the air thick with the scent of salt and wet earth. Crickets screamed in the dark, and every step felt heavier than the last. After about 20 minutes, I found it, a hidden metal hatch half buried beneath vines and soil. My heart raced as I brushed away the debris. The key from the briefcase fit perfectly into the slot. When I turned it, the hatch opened with a metallic sigh. Inside was a narrow staircase leading underground. The air that escaped smelled old, metallic, preserved. I descended slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand, until I reached a steel door with the same engraving I'd seen before: Foundation. Beyond it was a dimly lit chamber filled with computers, machinery, and rows of sealed glass cases. Dust covered everything, but the room was intact, frozen in time. Blueprints were pinned on corkboards, documents labeled Prototype Energy Core and Phase 2 lay scattered across desks. One monitor still flickered faintly with a command screen. I brushed off the keyboard and tapped a few keys. The system blinked to life. A login prompt appeared, username E. Hayes. Password required. My mind replayed everything I knew about my father. Birthdays, dates, phrases he used to say. I tried my own birthday, access denied. His wedding date, access denied again. Then out of instinct, I typed something else. C's birthday, Claire S. The screen blinked once, then loaded a directory. It worked. My pulse quickened as I opened the main file. A video appeared, timestamped 16 years ago. I pressed play. The screen showed my father sitting in a small office, looking directly into the camera. His voice was calm but urgent. Jacob, if you're watching this, it means I failed to keep my promise. The foundation was supposed to be humanity's safeguard. We were building a self-sustaining energy core, a clean source powerful enough to replace oil, coal, everything. But Robert saw profit, not progress. He wanted control. When I refused to sign it over, he destroyed the project and faked my death. I froze, my throat felt dry. My father's image continued speaking. They'll try to finish what I started, but not for the world, for power. If you found this, the designs are still intact. Use them wisely. And Jacob, trust no one with the Dawson name. The video ended abruptly. For a long time, I didn't move. I just stared at the dark screen reflecting my face. My father had built something world-changing, and Claire's father had buried it. Then Claire, my Claire, had somehow known and brought me back here. Rosa's voice startled me. You shouldn't be down here. She was standing at the top of the stairs, a flashlight in her hand. How did you find me? This island has cameras everywhere, she said quietly, but I came alone. The Dawsons are coming tomorrow. I climbed back up, my mind racing. What do they want? The same thing they wanted from your father. We stood outside in the humid air, listening to the sea. I could see lights on the far side of the island, the private dock, boats. They were early. Do they know what Claire did? I asked. They know enough to be dangerous. Rosa handed me a small flash drive. She told me to give you this if things got bad. It's the backup. Keep it hidden. Why are you helping me? Because Ms. Dawson saved my family years ago, she said simply. She knew this day would come. As we hurried back to the villa, I noticed the horizon growing darker, storm clouds rolling in fast. I could feel the electricity in the air, the weight of a story too big for one night to hold. In the main office, I spread out all the documents across the floor, my father's letters, the blueprints, Claire's notes. The pieces were starting to fit, though barely. The foundation wasn't just a company. It was a legacy buried beneath lies, and for some reason, both my father and Claire had chosen me to carry it. Thunder rolled in the distance. Rosa checked the window. They've arrived. My stomach tightened. I moved toward the door, ready to confront whatever waited outside, but something stopped me. On the desk, beneath the scattered papers, lay one last sealed envelope, smaller than the rest, with a single line written across it in Claire's handwriting. It said, "Don't let them rewrite what your father started, and if you have to run, run toward the truth, not away from it." I tucked the envelope into my jacket, feeling the pulse of the storm growing heavier. Lightning illuminated the horizon, and through the window, I saw the silhouettes of approaching men stepping onto the dock. Whatever Claire had tried to protect, whatever my father had died for, it was no longer hidden. It was here, it was mine, and they were coming to take it. The first lightning bolt struck the sea as I reached the front steps. The air cracked with thunder, and in that flash of light I saw them, 3 men in dark suits, soaked by rain, walking toward the villa like they already owned it. Behind them, a 4th figure held an umbrella over his head. Even from a distance, I recognized that posture, that slow, deliberate stride. Robert Dawson, Claire's father. I turned to Rosa. Hide the drive, now. She slipped it into her pocket without a word and vanished into the hallway. My heartbeat drummed like the thunder outside. I didn't know what scared me more, the men walking up the steps or the truth that I was about to face the man who had destroyed my father. When the door burst open, Robert didn't look surprised to see me. He just smiled, that polished business smile that hid 1,000 secrets. "Jacob," he said, voice calm as the storm raged behind him. "I was wondering when you'd finally show up." "You shouldn't be here," I said, my voice rougher than I expected. "This island belongs to me now." He chuckled softly, shaking rain from his umbrella. "Oh, I'm well aware. My daughter made sure of that, and that's precisely why I'm here, to correct her mistake." The men behind him spread out silently, professionals, not guests. They moved like security but felt more like hunters. I could see the outline of holsters beneath their jackets. Robert adjusted his cufflinks the way someone would before a business meeting. "Claire has always been emotional," he continued. "She never understood that some legacies are too valuable to leave in the hands of sentiment." "What legacy are you talking about?" He looked at me as if the answer were obvious. "The foundation, of course." Hearing him say it out loud sent a chill down my spine. "You killed my father," I said quietly. "You destroyed everything he built." Robert's eyes didn't even flicker. "I finished what he couldn't. Your father was a visionary, but he was naive. He believed you could give the world infinite clean energy and expect people not to fight over it." The Foundation's technology would have collapsed entire industries overnight. He wanted to save the world. I wanted to save order. By faking his death, I snapped. He shrugged. It was necessary for everyone's safety. The lightning flashed again, illuminating his face. There was no remorse, no hint of humanity, just calculation. He took a step closer. You have something that belongs to me. Hand it over, Jacob, and you can walk away alive. Claire's little stunt won't matter. I forced myself to stay still. What did you do to her? Robert smiled faintly. She's safe for now, but she's made very poor choices lately, trusting you being one of them. Rage flared hot in my chest, but I kept my voice level. You'll never get what you're looking for. What? Don't be foolish, he said. You think you can protect it. The blueprints, the drive, all that data. Do you have any idea how many people are already looking for it? You're a pawn in a game your father started and I finished. You can't win. He turned to one of his men. Search the house. That was my cue. I bolted toward the back hallway, grabbing the documents from the desk as I ran. I could hear footsteps behind me, the heavy rhythm of boots against tile. Rose's voice echoed faintly down the corridor. This way. We darted through a side exit that led to the covered walkway between villas. The storm lashed against us, sheets of rain blurring everything into chaos. I could barely see 5 feet ahead. We ducked into a service tunnel that led toward the lower docks. Rosa slammed the door shut and locked it. She handed me a waterproof bag. Everything you'll need is inside. The second drive, cash, and coordinates Claire left. You have to go before they find us. What about you? She smiled faintly. I've lived on this island long enough. They won't kill me. They'll hunt. A loud crash echoed from the corridor above us. They were inside. I hesitated. Why did Claire trust me with this? Because she knew you wouldn't sell it, Rosa said. Because she believed you'd finish what your father started. Her words cut through the noise like a flare in the dark. I nodded, gripping the bag tight. Then I ran. The tunnel led straight to a narrow pier hidden behind the cliffs. A small motorboat was waiting, rocking violently with the wind. Waves were rising higher by the second. I climbed aboard and started the engine. Rosa stayed on the dock, watching me with that calm, knowing look. The last thing I saw before the rain swallowed her was her hand raised in farewell. The sea was merciless. Wind slammed into me like fists, waves crashing over the bow. I pushed the throttle, heading toward the coordinates glowing on the small GPS device Claire had left in the bag. 40 minutes of chaos later, I reached a sheltered cove surrounded by black cliffs. In the distance, faint lights glimmered through the rain, an old structure built into the rocks. It wasn't part of the resort. It looked older, almost forgotten. I anchored the boat and climbed the slippery stone steps that led up to the building. The door creaked open under my weight, revealing a narrow corridor lit by emergency lamps. Inside, rows of boxes, old servers, and binders filled the space. It was another vault, smaller but clearly designed to hide something. In the center stood a terminal similar to the one I'd seen underground, but this one was newer, still active. A message blinked on the screen. Authorization required, Claire Dawson. I hesitated, then pulled the flash drive from the bag. When I connected it, the message changed. Secondary access granted. Welcome, Jacob Hayes. A folder opened with several video files, all time-stamped within the past 2 months. I clicked the first one. Claire appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like the same villa office. Her eyes were tired, but her voice was steady. If you're watching this, it means my father found out. I tried to stop him, Jacob. I really did. The Foundation wasn't just energy. It was a weapon disguised as hope. My father and your father started it together, but when Ethan realized what it could become, he tried to shut it down. That's why he died. She paused, her voice trembling slightly. I needed you to have the island because you were the only one left who wouldn't be tempted by it. Everything your father built is stored in this system. You can destroy it or finish it. The choice is yours, but if my father reaches you first, he'll use it to control the world. The video ended abruptly, leaving me in silence with only the rain tapping against the roof. I leaned against the console, breathing hard. My mind was spinning. All of it, the wedding, the island, Claire's disappearance, it had all been part of a plan she'd crafted to protect something far bigger than either of us. She hadn't left me, she de-saved me. A loud metallic clang snapped me back to reality. Voices outside, flashlights slicing through the storm. They'd found me. I yanked the flash drive from the terminal and shoved it into my pocket. The screen flickered and another message appeared on its own. Failsafe initiated, 10 minutes until full system purge. Perfect timing, I grabbed the bag and darted toward the rear exit just as the door burst open behind me. A man shouted and bullets tore through the metal wall, sparks flying. I sprinted into the rain, lungs burning, heart pounding in sync with the thunder. Ahead, the cliffs dropped straight into the ocean. I had two choices: turn back and die or jump. I chose the sea. The cold hit me like electricity. I went under, swallowed by darkness and salt, kicking hard until I broke the surface. The rain was blinding, the current strong, but I could see faint lights on the horizon, the direction of the mainland. I clutched the bag to my chest and swam toward the only thing that still made sense: survival. And behind me, somewhere on that cursed island, the last remnants of the Foundation burned into nothing. By the time I reached the mainland, dawn was already breaking across the horizon. The sun rose over the water like nothing had happened, but my body felt like it had lived through a war. My clothes were torn, my lungs raw from the salt water, and every muscle screamed for rest. I collapsed on the rocky shore, clutching the waterproof bag to my chest. Waves lapped against my legs as if the sea itself was trying to drag me back. After a few minutes, I forced myself up and stumbled inland. I didn't know where I was exactly, somewhere along the Belize coast, but I knew I couldn't stay exposed. If Robert Dawson's men had followed, I'd be dead before noon. I found an abandoned fishing hut a few hundred meters inland. The door hung loosely on its hinges, and the air inside smelled of rust and rain. I collapsed onto a wooden bench and opened the bag. Inside, everything was still dry. The flash drive, Claire's envelope, a small satellite phone, and a folded note in her handwriting. Jacob, if you made it off the island, there's a safe house in Panama under the name Aaron West. Use the coordinates on the drive. The world isn't ready for what's inside. Be careful who you trust. Her words steadied me. She had planned every detail, even the escape. I powered on the satellite phone, typed the coordinates into the map app, and stared at the distance. It would take 2 days by sea or 1 by air. I needed transport. By afternoon, I managed to reach a small harbor town where locals rarely asked questions. Using some of the cash Claire had hidden in the bag, I paid a fisherman to take me south at sunset. He didn't know my name, didn't ask why I was running. He just nodded, muttered "storm coming," and started prepping his boat. The ocean that night was calmer, but my mind was. I sat near the bow, watching the dark waves slide past, thinking about my father. Every memory felt heavier now. The bedtime stories he used to tell, the strange drawings he made, even the night he disappeared, they all made sense in fragments. He hadn't just been a dreamer, he'd been hunted. Somewhere after midnight, the fisherman nudged my shoulder. "We near coast," he said, pointing ahead. Through the mist, I could see faint lights, Panama City, glimmering like a promise, but my relief didn't last long. A faint hum echoed behind us. When I turned, I saw a black speedboat cutting through the water fast. Dawson's men. Faster, I shouted, gripping the side of the boat. The fishermen gunned the throttle, but their engines roared louder, gaining speed. Bullets cracked over the waves, splintering the side of our boat. I dove to the floor as shards of wood exploded near my head. Then, as quickly as it began, a blinding light swept across the sea. Another boat appeared out of nowhere, sleek and white, with 2 figures on deck. One of them lifted a flare gun and fired toward the pursuers. The flare burst into red fire, searing across the dark water. The black boat veered off course, blinded by the glare, then vanished into the fog. The white boat slowed beside us. A voice called out, "Jacob Hayes." I hesitated, ready to jump if needed. "Who's asking?" "Friends of Claire Dawson," the man shouted back. "Get aboard." I didn't have time to question it. I leapt across the gap as the fisherman veered away toward the coast. The man pulled me onto the deck. He was in his late 30s, tanned skin, sharp eyes. "Name's Ryan," he said. "Claire sent us before she went dark." "Went dark," I repeated. He nodded grimly. "She's gone off grid. Dawson's people raided her Paris office 2 days ago. She barely escaped." My stomach sank. "Is she alive?" "As of yesterday, but if you're here, she'll want to meet you." We traveled through the night, reaching a private dock just before sunrise. From there, we moved inland to a quiet villa surrounded by palm trees and guarded by men who didn't look like locals. Ryan led me inside, down a narrow hallway, and stopped before a steel door with biometric locks. "She's waiting," he said. The door opened into a dimly lit study. Claire stood by the window, her silhouette framed against the morning light. When she turned, I saw exhaustion in her eyes, but also something else, relief. "You're alive," she said softly. I wanted to be angry, but when I saw her, all I felt was the weight of everything we hadn't said. "You could have told me," I said, "about my father, about the island, about all of it." "If I had," she whispered, "you would have been killed before you even understood why." I walked closer, searching her face. "Robert's still coming. He knows I have the data." She nodded. "He'll keep coming. That's why we can't stay here." She moved to the desk and opened a laptop. "Your father wasn't the only one who believed in the Foundation. There are others, scientists, engineers, people who disappeared after the shutdown. They called themselves the Keepers. I've been tracking them for years. If we find them, we can rebuild the project the way it was meant to be." I stared at the screen showing names, coordinates, coded documents. "You're talking about resurrecting something people died for." I'm talking about finishing what they started, she said. The world's choking on corruption and greed. This could change everything. And what if Dawson's right? I asked quietly. What if the world isn't ready? Claire's eyes softened. Then we make it ready. For a long time I didn't say anything. Outside, the wind carried the sound of the sea, the same sea that had nearly killed me. The same sea that had brought me here. I thought of my father's voice in that old recording, his belief that truth mattered more than power. I finally understood what he meant. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and set it on the desk. Then let's find them. Claire's lips curved into a faint smile, but before she could speak, Ryan burst through the door. They've found us, he said, breathless. We've got 2 SUVs approaching from the main road. Claire's expression hardened instantly. Pack the equipment, we're leaving. She grabbed a black case from the desk, and we ran through the back exit toward a waiting jeep. As we sped down the dirt road, gunfire erupted behind us. The villa exploded into flames, lighting up the sky. Ryan swerved hard, tires skidding across gravel. They won't stop, Claire shouted over the roar of the engine. They want the drive, Jacob. I looked down at the small device still clutched in my hand. I thought about destroying it right then, ending the chase, the danger, the blood, but something inside me resisted. If my father had died to protect this, I couldn't let it die with me. We reached a crossroads near the coastline where the jungle met the sand. Claire pointed toward a narrow trail. There's an airstrip ahead, she said. Ryan, take us there. Minutes later, the small plane came into view, a single-engine craft waiting under the trees. We jumped out, racing through the rain-soaked field as bullets tore through the air behind us. Ryan fired back while Claire climbed into the cockpit. Get in, she yelled. I jumped onto the wing, pulling the door shut behind me as the plane lurched forward. The ground blurred beneath us, then fell away completely as we lifted into the storm. I looked out the window at the burning villa below, shrinking into a flicker of orange light against the sea. Claire's voice came through the headset, steady but low. Next stop, Peru. There's someone waiting who can help us decrypt the rest of your father's files. I exhaled, tension draining from my chest, but the truth lingered like thunder in the distance. The Foundation wasn't just a secret anymore, it was a war waiting to begin, and I was standing right in the center of it. We landed on a private airstrip nestled in the dense green folds of the Peruvian jungle just before sunrise. The air was thick with humidity and the earthy smell of wet soil. The world felt quieter here, away from the chaos we'd left behind. The plane's engine slowed to a murmur, then silence. I stepped out, feeling the ground sink slightly beneath my boots. My pulse still hadn't steadied since the villa explosion. Claire joined me, her expression unreadable. We're safe for now, she said, scanning the tree line. But that won't last long. Dawson has resources everywhere. Ryan was already unloading the crates from the plane. The contact should be here soon, he said. We'll need to move quickly once he arrives. This place isn't on any map, but drones can still find us. I looked around, uneasy. The jungle was alive with noise, distant birds, insects, the occasional crack of branches in the wind. It didn't feel like safety, it felt like hiding. After about 30 minutes, a jeep appeared from the shadows of the trees. A man stepped out, thin and sharp-eyed, wearing a weathered leather jacket. Name S. Dr. Alvaro Ruiz, he said, shaking my hand firmly. You must be Ethan's son. I nodded cautiously. You knew my father. Worked with him, Ruiz replied, on the Foundation project before everything went south. He was the only one who believed we should use the core for energy, not for control. He looked toward Claire. She said you had the drives. I handed him the waterproof bag. Ruiz took it carefully, as if holding something sacred. He led us into a small field station hidden behind layers of thick foliage. Inside, dusty computers hummed weakly on backup power. The walls were lined with charts, blueprints, and photographs from decades ago, images of my father, younger, standing beside machines I didn't recognize. Ruiz placed the flash drive into one of the terminals. Lines of code filled the screen, cascading like a waterfall of forgotten language. After a moment, he frowned, encrypted with dual-layer security. Ethan must have done this before he died. Only a genetic key can unlock it now. What kind of key? I asked. DNA, he said simply. His or yours? I swallowed hard. So it's true, he meant for me to finish it. Ruiz nodded. He must have known this day would come. Claire stepped closer. Can you decrypt it safely? Ruiz hesitated. Yes, but once I start the process, it'll send a signal. Whoever's tracking this data will know it's been accessed. I thought of Dawson, of his men, of the endless chase that had already cost lives. Do it anyway, I said. It's time we stop running. Ruiz typed in the commands. The computer's lights flickered as the system scanned the small blood sample he took from my finger. The screen pulsed once, twice, then opened a folder titled Project Genesis. Inside were hundreds of files, designs, research notes, video logs. Ruiz opened the first video. My father appeared, sitting in a dim lab much like this one. His eyes looked older than I remembered, heavy with both fear and conviction. "If this message reaches you," he said, "then the world has entered a point of no return. Genesis wasn't just energy, it was rebirth, a way to restore what mankind destroyed. But power always corrupts, and I made the mistake of trusting men like Dawson. If you continue my work, you must protect the seed at all costs." The image cut to a 3D model, a glowing crystalline core suspended inside a containment chamber. My breath caught. Ruiz whispered, "It's real." Before I could respond, an alarm blared from one of the outer monitors. A red light flashed across the room. "Multiple heat signatures approaching," Ryan shouted. "3 trucks coming fast." Claire's face went pale. "They found us already." Ruiz slammed the computer shut. "We can't let them take this. If Dawson gets Genesis, it's over." He yanked the main hard drive from the system and stuffed it into a steel case. "Take this. There's a river behind the ridge, leads to a small airfield about 10 kilometers east." Gunfire cracked outside, sharp and immediate. Bullets ripped through the corrugated walls, sending sparks into the air. Ryan returned fire from the doorway, shouting, "Move, go." Claire grabbed my arm. "Jacob, the case." I slung it over my shoulder as Ruiz typed one final command into the terminal. "Self-destruct," he said calmly. "The lab burns, but the data survives with you." We burst through the back exit as the first explosion rocked the building. Flames erupted behind us, swallowing years of work in seconds. The air filled with heat and smoke. I stumbled through the trees, following Claire's silhouette ahead of me. Ryan covered our flank, firing bursts into the shadows. The forest seemed endless. Every breath burned. Every step felt heavier than the last. Then finally we reached the ridge. Below us stretched a wide river, glinting faintly under the rising sun. A small motorboat waited near the bank, another one of Claire's contingencies. We scrambled down the slope, mud sliding beneath our feet. As we reached the boat, a voice echoed from above. "Jacob." I turned to see Robert Dawson standing at the ridge with a pistol in his hand. His suit was torn, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "You can't win, son," he shouted. "You think your father's dream will save anyone. It'll destroy everything. Give me the case." I lifted my gaze to meet his. "No, you've taken enough." He aimed the gun. "You don't understand. Genesis isn't salvation, it's extinction. That core can rewrite the balance of the planet. No one should have that power." "Then why did you want it?" I asked. His silence was the only answer I needed. Claire whispered, "Jacob, we have to go." Robert took a step closer, rage overtaking reason. "You're just like him," he said, voice trembling. "Always thinking you can change the world. You'll fail, just like he did." I met his eyes. "Maybe, but at least I'll try for the right reasons." Before he could fire, Ryan's shot rang out. Robert staggered backward, collapsing into the dirt. His pistol fell from his hand and slid down the slope, vanishing into the mud. Claire didn't look back. "Go." We jumped into the boat as Ryan gunned the engine. The river carried us away fast, the burning forest fading into the distance. I looked down at the steel case in my lap, the last remnant of my father's work, and felt both relief and dread. After hours of silence, the boat drifted into calmer waters. The sun was high now, cutting through the mist. Claire leaned against the railing, exhausted. "What will you do with it?" she asked quietly. I looked at the horizon. My father wanted to save the world. "Maybe I can't do that, but I can make sure it never falls into the wrong hands again." She smiled faintly. "Then his faith in you wasn't misplaced." "What?" As the boat carried us farther downstream, the jungle gave way to open plains. Ahead, a small airstrip shimmered in the heat. Ryan steered toward it, the hum of the engine steady and low. For the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself breathe. The chase, the lies, the loss, it all led here, and for the first time I understood the truth buried beneath it all. My father didn't just leave me a secret, he left me a choice. The choice to end the cycle, the choice to protect what mattered. The choice to decide what kind of man I wanted to become. And as the horizon opened wide before me, one thought burned clear in my mind. The foundation wasn't a legacy of power, it was a test of faith, and this time I wouldn't fail it.